The Seattle rain hammered against the windows of Kane Technologies' research division as Natalia Reeves adjusted her microscope, studying the latest samples from the experimental algae biofuel project. At 27, she'd already made significant contributions to sustainable energy research, but working for Alexander Kane's company had elevated her career to heights she'd never imagined possible. More importantly, it had brought Alexander into her life. Still here? His voice came from the doorway, warm and familiar. Natalia looked up to find Alexander Kane leaning against the frame, his dark hair slightly disheveled from running his hands through it, a habit he had when deep in thought. At 32, he'd built a technology empire focused on environmental solutions, and despite his billions, he still spent more time in laboratories than boardrooms. I could ask you the same thing, Natalia smiled, removing her safety glasses. It's almost midnight. I was hoping to catch you before you left. Alexander crossed to her workstation, and Natalia felt her pulse quicken as it always did when he was near. They'd been dating for 8 months, keeping their relationship quiet to avoid gossip, but every moment together felt electric. Your presentation to the board tomorrow is going to change everything, he said, picking up her notes. This algae strain could revolutionize renewable fuel production. Our presentation, Natalia corrected. This was teamwork. Alexander set down the papers and pulled her close. Natalia, I need to tell you something. I'm in love with you. Completely, irrevocably in love with you. Her heart soared. I love you too. I have for months. Their kiss was interrupted by Natalia's phone buzzing insistently. She pulled away reluctantly, frowning at the unknown number. Ms. Reeves, this is Margaret from Seattle General Hospital. Your mother has been admitted. She's stable, but you should come. The blood drained from Natalia's face. Her mother, Claire, had been battling lupus for years, but recently her condition had worsened. I have to go, Natalia said, grabbing her bag. I'll drive you, Alexander offered immediately. At the hospital, they found Claire Reeves looking fragile in the sterile bed, but her eyes were clear and alert. She smiled when she saw Natalia, then noticed Alexander. So this is the famous Alexander Kane, Claire said weakly. Natalia mentioned you. Thank you for bringing her. Of course, Mrs. Reeves. Is there anything you need? Before Claire could answer, a cold voice cut through the room. How touching. The thief's daughter playing nurse. Natalia turned to find a woman in her 60s standing in the doorway, elegant, severe, with steel-gray hair and eyes like chips of ice. Victoria Kane, Alexander's mother and the true power behind Kane Technologies' board of directors. Mother, Alexander said, surprise and tension in his voice. What are you doing here? Protecting my son from making the same mistake that destroyed this family once before. Victoria stepped into the room, and Natalia noticed she carried a leather folder. Tell me, Ms. Reeves, does Alexander know about your father? About what Richard Reeves did to our family? Natalia felt ice forming in her stomach. Her father had died in a car accident when she was 12. He'd been an accountant for a pharmaceutical company. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Victoria opened the folder, spreading documents across the empty bed beside Claire. 20 years ago, your father was the financial controller for Kane Pharmaceuticals, our family's first company before we transitioned to technology. He embezzled $8.7 million over the course of 3 years. That's impossible, Natalia breathed, but she was staring at bank statements, transfer records, all bearing her father's name and signature. Mother, what is this? Alexander demanded, moving to examine the documents. The truth I should have revealed months ago when I first learned about your relationship. Victoria's voice was sharp. Richard Reeves systematically stole from us. When we discovered it, he fled and died in that convenient accident before he could be prosecuted. We never recovered the money. Claire made a small sound of distress. Natalia grabbed her mother's hand, feeling it tremble. But that's not even the worst of it, Victoria continued, her eyes glittering with cold fury. That missing money was supposed to fund an experimental treatment for your sister, Alexander. 15-year-old Sarah died because the funds weren't available when we needed them most. Alexander went white. Sarah's death was because of embezzlement? Your father killed my daughter, Victoria said to Natalia. And now you've wormed your way into my son's life, into his company, probably hoping to finish what your father started. No. Natalia's voice broke. I didn't know anything about this. My father was a good man. He wouldn't. The evidence speaks for itself. Victoria pulled out more papers, emails, memos, all appearing to show Richard Reeves carefully planning and executing the theft. I've kept this quiet for 20 years to avoid scandal. But I won't let you destroy what's left of my family. Alexander looked between his mother and Natalia, conflict written across his face. Natalia, did you know about any of this? No. Alexander, I swear. She's lying, Victoria interrupted. Why else would she have targeted you specifically? A brilliant young scientist who just happens to get hired by the son of the family her father robbed? It's too convenient. That's not true, Natalia said desperately. I applied to Kane Technologies because of the environmental work. I didn't even know about the pharmaceutical company connection. Enough. Victoria's voice cracked like a whip. Here's what's going to happen. You will resign from Kane Technologies immediately. You will leave Seattle and never contact my son again. In exchange, I won't press charges or make this public. Your sick mother can continue receiving her expensive treatments without the scandal of being known as the wife of a thief and murderer. You can't threaten her like this, Alexander protested. I can and I am. Alexander, this woman's father killed your sister. Every moment you spend with her daughter dishonors Sarah's memory. Victoria turned her cold gaze back to Natalia. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Disappear quietly, or I'll ensure both you and your mother are destroyed publicly. The choice is yours. Victoria swept out of the room, leaving devastation in her wake. Natalia looked at Alexander, seeing doubt and pain warring in his expression. Alexander, please. You have to believe me. I didn't know anything about this. I don't know what to believe right now, he said quietly. My sister died, Natalia. If what my mother says is true. It can't be true. My father wouldn't. The documents look legitimate. The signatures, the accounts. Alexander ran his hands through his hair. I need time to process this. I need to verify everything. Alexander, please. But he was already walking toward the door. He paused, looking back at her with anguish in his eyes. I loved you, Natalia. God help me, I still do. But I need answers. And I need them to be the truth. He left, and Natalia collapsed into the chair beside her mother's bed. It's not true, Claire whispered, tears streaming down her face. Your father was a good man. He would never. I know, Mom. Natalia held her mother's frail hand. But how do I prove it? All the evidence points to him. That night, Natalia sat in her apartment, surrounded by the documents Victoria had left behind. Every piece of evidence condemned her father. Every trail led back to Richard Reeves as the architect of an elaborate theft. But something felt wrong. The signatures looked right, but the language in the emails felt off, too formal, too calculated for the warm, slightly disorganized man she remembered. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Ms. Reeves, this is Victoria Kane's attorney. Mrs. Kane wanted me to clarify the terms of her offer. If you resign and relocate by 9 a.m. tomorrow, she'll wire $200,000 to an account of your choosing, enough to cover your mother's treatments for several years. If you refuse, she'll hold a press conference at noon revealing your father's crimes and your infiltration of Kane Technologies. The choice is yours." The line went dead. Natalia looked around her apartment, at the life she'd built, at the research that mattered to her, at the photos of her and Alexander hidden in her desk drawer. Then she looked at the hospital bracelet still on her wrist from visiting her mother. Claire needed treatments that cost thousands per month. If Victoria made good on her threat, no company would hire Natalia. Her mother would lose access to care. And Alexander would spend his life believing her father had killed his sister. But if she left quietly, at least her mother would be safe. At least Alexander could remember their love as something pure before it was tainted by this revelation. Natalia pulled out her laptop and began typing her resignation letter, tears streaming down her face. She would disappear, not to protect herself, but to protect the people she loved from the destruction Victoria Kane could unleash. She didn't know that the evidence against her father had been meticulously fabricated over 20 years. She didn't know that Victoria had been the true embezzler, stealing funds to maintain her lavish lifestyle and framing Richard Reeves when her crimes were discovered. She didn't know that in leaving, she was doing exactly what Victoria wanted, removing the one person who might have eventually uncovered the truth. All she knew was that by morning, she would be gone, and Alexander Kane would never know how much leaving him would cost her. At dawn, Natalia took one last look at Seattle's skyline, threw her packed bags into her old car, and drove away from everything she loved. In her rearview mirror, the city, and the man who held her heart, disappeared into the distance. She was 3 months pregnant, though she didn't know it yet. And she was about to encounter something that would change not just her life, but her fundamental understanding of the universe itself. 5 years later, Natalia stood in her small laboratory in Seattle's industrial district, analyzing water samples from Puget Sound. She'd returned to the city 6 months ago after years in Montana, driven by a need to be near the ocean and the faint hope that proximity might somehow heal old wounds. "Mommy, I'm done with my reading," called a voice from the corner office. Natalia looked up to see Luna, her 4-year-old daughter, holding up a tablet displaying a college-level physics textbook. Luna had taught herself to read at age 2 and had been devouring advanced scientific material ever since. "That's wonderful, sweetie. Did you understand the quantum mechanics section?" "Most of it. But I have questions about wave-particle duality." Luna tilted her head in that peculiar way she had, and for just a moment, her eyes shimmered with an iridescent quality that made Natalia's breath catch. "It was happening more frequently now." "We'll discuss it over lunch," Natalia promised, trying to keep her voice steady. Luna was extraordinary in ways that went far beyond her intelligence. She could sense people's emotions with uncanny accuracy. She healed from injuries impossibly fast. And sometimes, when she was deep in concentration, her eyes would shift, becoming larger, more luminous, tinged with violet light. Natalia knew exactly why. That night, after putting Luna to bed, Natalia descended to the basement laboratory she'd built in their small rented house. Behind a locked door was a room she'd never shown anyone, walls covered in notes, diagrams, and photographs that would seem impossible to anyone who saw them. At the center of it all was a communication device that looked like a crystalline sculpture, pulsing with soft purple light. Natalia activated it, and within moments, a holographic image materialized, a figure with purple skin that shimmered like amethyst, large luminous eyes, and features that were both alien and somehow familiar. "Natalia," Zara's voice was musical, layered with harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. "It's good to see you. How is Luna?" "Her abilities are manifesting more frequently," Natalia said, sinking into a chair. "The eye changes, the enhanced empathy. She's starting to ask questions about why she's different from other children." Zara's expression was sympathetic. "The integration is progressing as expected. By age 7, her hybrid nature will stabilize, and she'll have full control of her enhanced capabilities." Natalia's mind drifted back 5 years, to the night that had changed everything. She'd been living in a remote Montana research station, studying environmental impacts on wildlife, trying to forget Alexander Kane and the life she'd lost. She was 6 months pregnant and had just learned about the baby through a free clinic, having no idea how she'd managed to raise a child alone. That's when she'd found Zara's crashed scout ship in the forest. The alien scientist had been dying, her vessel's life support failing after a meteorite collision damaged her ship's core. Zara had been studying Earth's ecosystems from orbit when disaster struck. Natalia should have been terrified. Instead, she'd felt overwhelming compassion for a being in pain, regardless of origin. She'd helped Zara, used her scientific knowledge to jury-rig repairs to the life support systems using materials from her research station. In gratitude, and knowing she was dying anyway, Zara had made an extraordinary offer. "Your child will be born into hardship," Zara had said, her voice already weakening. "Alone, without a father, with limited resources. Let me give her a gift. My people can share genetic material in our final moments, a way of ensuring our knowledge and abilities continue. If you consent, I can weave a small portion of my DNA into your developing child. She'll be human, but enhanced. Stronger, smarter, healthier. Able to sense emotions and heal quickly. She'll have advantages that will help her thrive. Is it safe?" Natalia had asked, her hand protectively on her stomach. "Perfectly. My species has done this before with compatible alien races. Your DNA and mine are remarkably similar, more than you might think. The integration will be seamless. She'll be your daughter in every way that matters, just extraordinary." Natalia had agreed. Hours later, Zara had performed the genetic weaving, a process involving light, energy, and technology beyond human understanding. Then Zara's repaired ship had carried her home to the planet Lyros in the Andromeda Galaxy, where advanced medical facilities could save her life. Luna had been born 3 months later. A healthy, beautiful baby girl with her mother's features and eyes that occasionally shimmered with alien light. "I need to tell her the truth soon," Natalia said to Zara's hologram now. "She's too intelligent not to notice she's different. She deserves to know her heritage," Zara agreed. "Both human and Lyrosian. But Natalia, there's something else. I've been monitoring Earth's communication networks as part of my research. Alexander Kane has been searching for you for 5 years. He never stopped." Natalia's heart clenched. "That's impossible. His mother showed him proof that my father was innocent. I've accessed the financial records using Lyrosian technology. Your father was framed. Victoria Kane was the true embezzler. She created an elaborate false trail to implicate Richard Reeves after her crimes were discovered." The room spun. "What?" "Alexander learned the truth 2 years ago. He's been trying to find you ever since, to apologize, to make things right. Natalia, he's in Seattle right now. His latest investigator tracked you to this city yesterday." Before Natalia could respond, the doorbell rang. At 10 o'clock at night. Natalia's heart hammered as she climbed the stairs. Through the peephole, she saw a figure that made her breath stop. Alexander Kane stood on her doorstep, older and more worn than she remembered, but unmistakably him. And behind him, she could see a black car with tinted windows. He hadn't come alone. "Natalia, I know you're there," Alexander called softly. "Please. I just want to talk. I know the truth about my mother. About what she did to you, to your father. I need to apologize. I need to explain." Natalia's hand trembled on the doorknob. 5 years of running, of hiding, of protecting Luna from a world that wouldn't understand her. And now Alexander was here, and everything was about to unravel. From upstairs, she heard Luna's sleepy voice. "Mommy? Someone's here. He feels familiar. Like he belongs with us." Natalia's eyes filled with tears. Luna's empathic abilities had sensed the connection, the biological bond between father and daughter that transcended their strange circumstances. Taking a deep breath, Natalia opened the door. Alexander's eyes widened when he saw her, and Natalia watched 5 years of searching, of regret, of longing wash across his face in a single moment. "Natalia," he breathed. "You're really here. I thought I'd never. How did you find me?" Her voice was steadier than she felt. "Private investigator. The fifth one I've hired. When you started publishing research papers again 6 months ago, even under a different institutional affiliation, your methodology was distinctive. I recognized your work." His eyes searched her face hungrily. "I need to tell you everything. My mother was the one who embezzled the money." "I know." Natalia saw shock register on his face. "I learned the truth recently. But Alexander, you can't be here. It's complicated in ways you can't imagine." "Then explain it to me. Please. I've spent 5 years trying to find you, trying to make this right." He took a step forward. "Natalia, I never stopped loving you. When I learned what my mother did, how she lied, how she drove you away." "Mommy?" Luna appeared at the top of the stairs, her dark hair tousled from sleep. "Who is that man? Why does he make my heart feel warm?" Alexander froze, his eyes moving from Natalia to the small girl on the stairs. Luna stared back at him with eyes that were hazel like Natalia's, but occasionally flickered with that strange iridescent quality. Natalia watched comprehension dawn across Alexander's face, the age of the child, the timing, the resemblance to both of them. "Is she?" Alexander couldn't finish the sentence. "Her name is Luna," Natalia said quietly. "She's 4 years old. And yes, she's yours." Alexander looked like he'd been struck. He sank onto the porch step, his hands shaking. "I have a daughter. We have a daughter. And you've been raising her alone for 4 years because of my mother's lies." Luna descended the stairs with the peculiar grace she'd inherited from Zara's genetic contribution. She studied Alexander with intense curiosity. "You're my father," she said matter-of-factly. "I can feel it. The genetic resonance is unmistakable." Alexander's eyes widened at the unusual phrasing for a 4-year-old. Natalia sighed. There was no way to ease into this. "Alexander, come inside." "Luna, go back to bed, sweetie. Daddy and I need to talk." "Daddy," Luna repeated, testing the word. A smile bloomed across her face. "I like that." She hugged Alexander impulsively before running back upstairs. In the living room, Alexander looked around at the modest space, so different from the luxury he inhabited. His eyes caught on Luna's drawings covering the refrigerator, her stack of advanced textbooks, the physics equations she'd been working on displayed on a whiteboard. "She's extraordinary," he said softly. "The way she speaks, the things she's reading. She's more extraordinary than you know." Natalia poured them both whiskey, knowing they'd need it. "What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. But I need you to listen with an open mind." She told him everything. The Montana research station, finding Zara's crashed ship, the dying alien scientists' offer to enhance their unborn child, the genetic weaving that made Luna partially human and partially Lyrosian. She showed him photographs of Zara, recordings of their conversations, Luna's medical scans that showed cellular structures no fully human child should have. Alexander listened in stunned silence, his expression cycling through disbelief, wonder, and fear. "You're telling me our daughter is part alien," he finally said. "She's human where it matters, her heart, her personality, her soul. But yes, she has Lyrosian genetic enhancements. Enhanced intelligence, rapid healing, empathic abilities. As she grows, she'll develop more capabilities. This is insane. Aliens aren't real. There's no scientific evidence." As if on cue, the crystalline communication device in the basement activated, pulsing with purple light. Zara's voice echoed through the house. "Natalia, I'm detecting an unfamiliar presence. Are you safe?" "It's fine, Zara. It's Alexander." Luna's father. A holographic image materialized in the living room, Zara's purple-skinned form, larger than life, her luminous eyes fixed on Alexander with alien curiosity. "Alexander Kane," Zara said, her harmonics reverberating through the space. "I've heard much about you. I'm Zara of Lyros, xenobiologist and genetic architect. Luna carries a portion of my DNA, given freely to ensure she would thrive in difficult circumstances. I hope you can accept this gift as it was intended, with love and hope for your daughter's future." Alexander stared at the hologram, his face pale. "I'm either losing my mind, or aliens are real, and one of them genetically modified my daughter." "The latter," Zara confirmed. "Though modification isn't quite accurate. Enhancement is more precise. Luna is predominantly human, approximately 91.7% of her DNA is from you and Natalia. My contribution is small but significant, woven into her genetic structure to amplify her natural human potential." "Why?" Alexander looked at Natalia. "Why would you agree to this?" "Because I was alone, pregnant, broke, and terrified," Natalia said, her voice breaking. "Because I thought you hated me, that my father was a criminal, that I had nothing to offer a child." Zara gave Luna advantages that would help her survive and thrive regardless of our circumstances. "I'd make the same choice again." Alexander was silent for a long moment, processing information that shattered his understanding of reality. Finally, he looked up at Zara's hologram. "Will she be safe? Will these enhancements hurt her?" "She'll be safer than fully human children," Zara assured him. "More resilient, healthier, with abilities that will protect her. But she'll also face challenges. She must learn to control her empathic sensing, to hide her nature from those who wouldn't understand. She'll need both parents to guide her." "Both parents," Alexander repeated, looking at Natalia. "If you'll let me. If you can forgive me for doubting you, for not fighting harder against my mother's lies." "Your mother," Natalia said. "Where is she now?" "In prison, awaiting trial. When I discovered her crimes 2 years ago, I turned over all the evidence to authorities. She'll spend the rest of her life behind bars." Alexander's voice was hard. "She stole millions, framed your father, let her own daughter die rather than admit her crimes, and drove away the woman I loved. I have no sympathy left for her." A sound from the doorway made them both turn. Luna stood there in her pajamas, having clearly been listening. "I'm part alien," she said calmly. "That's why I can do things other kids can't. That's why my eyes sometimes change." "Yes," Natalia said gently. "How do you feel about that?" Luna considered this seriously. "It explains a lot. And Zara seems nice. Is she like my alien aunt?" Despite everything, Zara's hologram smiled. "I would be honored to be considered family, little one. On Lyros, we have a saying, family is not just blood, but choice and connection. You are connected to me through genetics, but also through the choice your mother made to give you the best possible chance at a remarkable life." Luna walked to Alexander and climbed into his lap with startling trust. "You won't leave again, will you, Daddy? I can feel that you love Mommy. And me, even though you just met me." Alexander's arms wrapped around his daughter, tears streaming down his face. "I will never leave. I promise you both, I will spend the rest of my life making up for the years I missed." He looked at Natalia over Luna's head. "If you'll let me. I don't expect forgiveness immediately. I don't expect to just pick up where we left off. But please, nah.